The moment her mother hit the ground, two destinies collided. She never imagined her small fruit stand could change a billionaire's fate, and he never expected a stranger's kindness to save his life. But when a failing heart drew him toward a girl everyone overlooked, the truth hiding behind her mother's sacrifice would shake him to his core. One choice, one tragedy, one revelation that would leave him completely speechless. Morning came slowly to the east side of Detroit, the kind of gray-blue dawn that always made the streetlights linger a little longer than they should. The stores along Jefferson Avenue were only just waking up, their neon signs flickering half-heartedly as if unsure whether the day was worth beginning. Maya Brown tightened her grip on her mother's hand, the two of them stepping off the curb with a small bag of oranges swinging from her wrist. Mama Ruth walked with her usual slow, gentle steps, humming a church hymn under her breath, the way she always did when she wanted Maya to feel safe. The street smelled like rain and gasoline. Overnight drizzle had left a thin sheet of water on the pavement, turning every passing headlight into a trembling white smear. Cars rolled by fast, the morning rush starting, tires hissing through puddles. Maya adjusted the hood of her jacket and leaned closer to her mother. "We'll get there quick, Mama. Pastor Lewis said the soup kitchen needs help slicing fruit." Mama Ruth smiled, the soft kind that brought warmth even on cold Detroit mornings. A little kindness before the day starts never hurt anyone. They were almost at the middle of the crosswalk when the sound split the air, an engine revving too loud, too fast, coming from the bend in the road. Maya turned her head, confused for a second, until she saw a black SUV skidding out from behind a line of parked cars, water spraying from its tires. Someone was shouting, someone was honking, but everything felt muffled, like sound underwater. "Mama?" Maya whispered, her voice barely forming the word. The SUV didn't slow. It slammed through the crosswalk. And in one terrible motion, Maya felt her mother's hand ripped from hers. Mama Ruth's body lifted off the ground, struck sideways by the vehicle's front end. The world blurred, shrieks, screeching metal, the thud of a body hitting wet asphalt. Maya stood frozen for a heartbeat before her knees gave way, sending her collapsing beside her mother on the cold pavement. "Mama! Mama, I'm here!" Maya's hands trembled as she touched her mother's face. Rainwater mixed with the faint trace of blood at the corner of Mama Ruth's mouth. Her breaths came shallow, uneven. A crowd gathered, voices rising, but all Maya heard was her own pulse throbbing in her ears. The SUV had stopped several yards away. A man stumbled out, holding a phone, babbling apologies Maya couldn't process. None of it mattered. She leaned over Mama Ruth, her tears falling onto her mother's cheek, trying desperately to shield her from the chaos around them. The streetlights flickered off one by one, leaving the cold morning plain and harsh. Maya pressed her forehead to her mother's hand. "Mama, please, stay with me. Please." For a moment, Mama Ruth's eyelids fluttered. Her lips parted slightly, as though she was reaching for a breath, or for words. Her fingers twitched, brushing weakly against Maya's wrist, a touch so light it felt like memory instead of flesh. "Mama?" Maya whispered again, voice cracking. A distant siren started up, growing louder as an ambulance turned onto the street. People stepped back, giving space. A paramedic knelt beside them, checking Mama Ruth's pulse, speaking in calm, practiced tones. But Maya's focus stayed locked on her mother's face, the faint motion of her lips, the attempt to speak through pain, through fear, through the slipping away of something too precious to lose. "Mama, what is it? What are you trying to say?" Under the wail of the siren, under the shuffle of feet and the orders being barked around her, Maya leaned in, hoping, praying, desperate to hear the one thing her mother was fighting to say before they lifted her onto the stretcher. But the words never came. The paramedics moved quickly, carefully loading Mama Ruth into the ambulance. Maya clung to the edge of the door, heart pounding, mind spinning. She didn't know, couldn't know that this morning, this moment of terror, would be the thread tying her life to a stranger's. A stranger living a world away in wealth, power, and privilege. A man who, at this very instant, was waking up in a penthouse in San Francisco, unaware that the woman fighting for breath on a Detroit street would one day save his life. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and the siren rose again, sharper this time, cutting through Maya's chest as the vehicle sped away. Her mother had tried to say something. But what? The question clung to Maya like cold rain as she sat alone in the hard plastic chair outside the emergency room. The hallway smelled of bleach and old coffee, the kind that sat too long on a warming plate. Nurses moved past her in hurried steps, their sneakers whispering across the linoleum floor. Everything felt too bright, too loud, too fast, yet somehow painfully slow. Her fingers twisted the hem of her jacket until the fabric curled into tiny knots. A clock above the double doors clicked with every passing second, each tick a reminder of how helpless she was. She'd never felt so small. Cars rushed past them on the street every day. People brushed by her fruit cart without a glance. But nothing ever made her feel as invisible as she felt now, sitting in a hallway where no one even asked her if she was okay. The doors finally swung open with a soft hiss. A doctor stepped out, his expression steady but weighed down. He had that tone, the one Maya recognized from movies and church funerals, the one that meant the world was about to tilt. "Are you Maya Brown?" he asked gently. She nodded, her throat too tight to speak. "We're doing everything we can for your mother. The impact caused internal injuries, and her heart isn't stabilizing." He paused, lowering his voice. "She's asking for you." The room spun just a little. Maya pushed herself up and followed him through the double doors, her steps unsteady. The lights inside the trauma room were harsh, silver white. Machines beeped in uneven rhythms. Tubes and wires surrounded her mother like tangled vines. Mama Ruth's eyes fluttered slightly when she sensed Maya's shadow beside the bed. Her hand twitched as if trying to reach for her daughter. Maya took it carefully, warming it between her palms. "I'm here, Mama," she whispered. Mama Ruth's breaths were thin, fragile things. She looked at Maya the way only a mother could, love shining even through the fear and pain. Her lips moved again, that same struggle Maya saw on the street. This time the doctor leaned close, adjusting the oxygen mask for a moment so Ruth could speak. "Maya." The name came out like a sigh. "I'm right here," Maya said, bending closer. "You're going to be okay. They're helping you." A faint smile touched her mother's face, the kind that didn't belong in a room full of machines and alarms. "Baby, listen to me." Maya's heart clenched. "I'm listening. If I don't make it," her voice cracked, barely audible. "Promise me. Let them use what they can." Maya froze, not understanding. "My body," Mama Ruth whispered. "Let it save someone. Don't let me leave this world empty-handed." "Mama, don't talk like that," Maya pleaded, tears spilling unchecked. "I need you. I need you with me." "You'll be strong," Mama Ruth breathed. "Stronger than me." The beeping grew more erratic. A nurse glanced up at the monitor, her eyebrows knitting in concern. "Mama, please," Maya choked out. "Stay with me. I can't lose you." Ruth squeezed her hand weakly, barely a pressure at all. "Kindness, Maya. It always comes back. Don't stop giving it." Her chest rose in one last unsteady breath, then another, shallower. The doctor stepped forward, but Maya held tighter, shaking her head as if she could anchor her mother in place. "Mama! Mama, stay! Stay, please!" But the monitor flattened. A long, steady tone filled the room like a blade through silence. Nurses moved quickly, but their eyes told the truth before their hands stopped working. Maya felt something inside her break. Not like glass, more like fabric tearing down the center, unraveling years of warmth and safety in one swift pull. She lowered her head to her mother's chest, her tears mixing with the scent of hospital sheets and the faint lavender oil Mama Ruth always used in her hair. The doctor eventually placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. "I'm so sorry," he said softly. "She passed peacefully, and she left us very clear instructions. She wanted to be a donor." He paused, choosing his words with care. Her decision could save multiple lives. Maya didn't respond. Her world had shrunk to a single, unbearable point. They gave her time, 10 minutes, maybe 20. Time didn't mean anything. She pressed her forehead to Mama's still hand, memorizing the lines of her fingers, the warmth fading too quickly. In the quiet, she heard the echo of those final words. "Let it save someone. Save someone." She didn't understand why her mother used her last breaths on such a request. She didn't understand why the world took good people so easily. All she knew was the hollow ache widening inside her chest, a space that nothing could fill. When she finally stepped out of the room, a nurse caught her gently. "Your mother, she gave a gift tonight. We'll take great care of her." Gift. The word felt heavy, wrong, too big for such a small, grieving girl to carry. Maya walked down the hallway with her arms wrapped tightly around her own ribs, like she was holding herself together. Her footsteps echoed behind her, each one sounding farther away from the life she knew. The hospital doors opened, letting in the cold Detroit air. It wrapped around her, sharp and unforgiving. The city kept moving, cars rolling past, people talking, buses rumbling down Jefferson Avenue. No one knew that her world had ended inside those bright hospital walls. But something else had begun too. Somewhere far away, in a place she had never seen, a man would soon receive the gift her mother fought to speak about. A man whose life would change because Mama Ruth chose generosity over fear, hope over pain. And Maya, standing alone under the street lamp's dim glow, had no idea that her mother's final act was already on its way to someone who would one day become everything her life would collide with. Unexpectedly, painfully, beautifully. Her mother had tried to say something, and now Maya finally understood it. Kindness always comes back. But understanding didn't make the days afterward any less heavy. Detroit felt colder after the funeral, colder in a way that had nothing to do with the wind coming off the river. The city kept moving like it didn't notice one less heartbeat in it. Buses still sighed at their stops, street vendors still argued over corners, and the neighborhood kids still chased each other between rusted fences. Life went on, only Maya felt stuck, as if she were wading through grief that clung to her legs like wet concrete. The funeral itself had been small. A cheap pine casket. A pastor who didn't know Mama Ruth but used all the familiar lines. A handful of people from the soup kitchen came to lay a flower each, tiny gestures that made Maya cry harder, because her mother had earned more love than the world ever gave her. After it was done, the cemetery workers waited politely before lowering the casket, their breath forming white clouds in the February air. Maya stood until the ground swallowed the last bit of the only family she had left. When she returned home to their little apartment above the laundromat, the silence inside felt wrong, too still, too hollow. Her mother's gospel station wasn't playing. The air didn't smell like cornbread or lavender oil. There was no warm humming drifting from the kitchen. For the first time in her life, the rooms felt like rooms, not a home. She spent a few days sitting on her bed, staring at the wall, feeling her chest tighten every time she thought of her mother's last smile. But grief was expensive. Rent didn't care about heartbreak. Bills didn't skip a month just because someone's world fell apart. So, on the fifth morning, Maya took a deep breath, braided her hair neatly, and grabbed the same small crate of oranges Mama Ruth used to carry. Her hands shook a little as she locked the door behind her, but she forced her feet forward anyway. Surviving was the last thing she owed her mother. The city's morning rush greeted her with its usual noise: honking horns, distant sirens, and the thump of bass from a passing car. She walked past the bus stop where she and Mama once sat sharing hot cocoa, past the bakery that used to give them leftover rolls at dusk, past the corner where the streetlights flickered like tired eyes. Every step reminded her of someone who wasn't beside her anymore. She reached the open-air market near Gratiot Avenue, where vendors set up their stands beneath a patchwork of old tarps. The smell of fried dough, spices, and cold wet cardboard mixed into something oddly familiar. This had always been her place, her mother's place. Maya found an empty corner near the entrance and set down her crate. The oranges were bright, small bits of sunshine she hoped would draw people in. She whispered a quiet prayer under her breath the way Mama used to. The day started slow. A few people passed but didn't stop. Some glanced at her, then looked away just as quickly, as if something about her presence made them uncomfortable. Maya wasn't surprised. Ever since she was little, she'd felt the way certain people stiffened around her, like kindness from someone who looked like her had to be suspicious. A man in a crisp coat approached, glancing at her crate. Maya straightened, offering him a soft smile. "Fresh oranges today, sir. Sweet and juicy. Want to try one?" He wrinkled his nose as though she'd offered him a handful of dirt. "Do you even have a permit?" he demanded loudly. Before Maya could answer, the market security guard strode over. He was a tall man with a thick, impatient voice. "You again?" he barked. Maya flinched. I'm not causing trouble. I'm just trying to sell." "You can't just set up wherever you want," he snapped. "You're blocking the walkway." The man in the coat chimed in. "Exactly. This is why people avoid these markets. Anyone can just show up." Shame burned in the back of Maya's throat. "Sir, I'm not trying to bother anyone. I'm just trying to make a living." "Then find somewhere else to do it." The guard waved his hand, dismissing her like a stray dog wandering too close to a restaurant door. Maya swallowed hard. "I'm not hurting anyone." "Doesn't matter," the guard said, glancing at the coat man who seemed satisfied. "Pack it up or I'll call enforcement." A few people slowed down to watch. No one spoke up for her. No one ever did. Maya felt the familiar sting, the same one she'd felt at school when teachers ignored her raised hand. The same one she felt when store owners followed her too closely down aisles. Being treated like a problem instead of a person. She hesitated. "Please, just give me a little time." The guard stepped closer, lowering his voice but not softening it. "Don't make this difficult." Maya bent down, her fingers trembling as she reached for her crate. As she lifted it, an orange slipped out and rolled across the pavement. It bumped lightly against the polished shoe of the man in the coat. He stepped back sharply, as though she'd thrown it at him. "Watch where you're putting things," he snapped. People were still watching. No one helped her pick up the fruit. No one asked if she was okay. She was invisible, until she wasn't. And when she wasn't, she was a nuisance. Maya felt something tighten around her heart, the heaviness of another humiliation piling onto the grief she already carried. But she held on to her mother's words. Kindness always comes back. So instead of snapping, instead of crying, she simply nodded at the guard. "I'll move," she said quietly. The guard looked relieved that she didn't argue. The man in the coat gave her one last disdainful look before walking away. Maya turned to gather her things, and that's when she noticed someone else had been watching. A man stood near the edge of the market crowd, hands in the pockets of a tailored jacket. He wasn't looking at the oranges. He wasn't looking at the guard. He was looking directly at her, as if the entire scene meant something. His face held a strange kind of stillness, like a man staring at a puzzle he didn't know he'd been searching for. Maya didn't know his name. She didn't know his world was about to crash into hers. She didn't know he carried a heartbeat inside him that once belonged to her mother. All she knew was that he didn't look away, not even once. But while Maya bent down to gather the fallen oranges with quiet dignity, a world away in San Francisco, another life was unraveling, loudly, publicly, and with no dignity at all. Morning sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the coal industry's headquarters, turning the conference room glass into mirrors of gold. It should have been a powerful view, one that made people feel small in the presence of Ethan Cole. He was the kind of man who usually filled a room without trying. Sharp suit, calm voice, the reputation of a self-made tech visionary whose company had revolutionized medical AI. But today he looked pale. A sheen of sweat glistened above his brow as he scanned the presentation on the screen. Words blurred. Charts swam. He blinked hard, trying to steady his vision. "Ethan, are you all right?" his CFO asked. "I'm fine," Ethan murmured. But he wasn't. His chest thudded with a deep, dragging ache. His breaths felt short, like someone had placed a heavy hand over his ribs. Vanessa, sitting near the corner with her perfectly styled hair and phone in hand, barely looked up. "Probably just stress," she said casually. "You've been working too much." It was the kind of comment you'd expect from a supportive partner, except her tone carried no concern, just irritation at the meeting being slowed by something as inconvenient as her boyfriend's health. A wave of nausea hit him. The conference room lights flickered in his vision, dimming, then flaring too bright. He gripped the edge of the table. "Excuse me," he managed, pushing back from his chair. But the room tilted sharply, and everything slipped out of focus. He stumbled forward, his knees collapsing beneath him. Gasps echoed. Someone dropped their tablet. "Ethan!" He hit the ground hard, his heartbeat hammering in an irregular, frightening rhythm. Coldness crawled up his arms. The room erupted into chaos, executives rushing toward him. Vanessa finally rising to her feet with wide, startled eyes. A security guard called 911. Someone loosened his tie. Ethan tried to speak, but no words came out. The world dimmed into muffled sounds and distant shadows. When he woke again, he was in a hospital bed, the steady beep of a monitor syncing with the fading panic in his chest. A doctor stood beside him, flipping through charts with a grave expression. "Mr. Cole," the doctor said, "your kidneys are in late-stage failure. You need a transplant. Soon." Ethan stared at him, stunned into stillness. The doctor continued, "We can put you on the national waiting list, but it's long. Months, sometimes years." "Years?" Ethan croaked. "I don't have years." "I'm afraid the damage is advanced. Dialysis will buy time, but not much." Outside the glass door, cameras flashed. Reporters had already gathered. News anchors delivered breaking updates about the Billionaire CEO hospitalized for an undisclosed emergency. Stock prices jittered. Inside the room, everything was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Vanessa slipped in, her heels clicking softly. She perched at his bedside, though her posture was stiff, like she didn't want to wrinkle her designer dress. "Ethan, this is awful," she said, her voice trembling in the way people tremble when they don't want to deal with something. "But you'll be okay. You have options. Money helps." He looked at her, eyes tired, searching for comfort. Would you get tested? To see if you're a match?" She blinked. "Me?" "Yes. he whispered. Please, I need someone close. Vanessa's face tightened. For the first time since she entered, she truly looked at him. Sick, fragile, scared, and she panicked. I can't, she said quickly. I have a brand collaboration shoot next month. Surgery scars would ruin everything. A silence fell heavy enough to choke on. You're refusing? Ethan asked quietly. I'm sorry, she said, though her tone held more annoyance than remorse. This is just bad timing. Maybe someone else can help. Your company has thousands of employees. Or, get out, Ethan whispered. What? He didn't raise his voice. Didn't have to. The hurt in his eyes said everything. Vanessa hesitated for half a second before gathering her purse, flipping her hair, and walking out without a backward glance. A nurse entered a moment later, giving Ethan a sympathetic look as she adjusted his IV. The doctor's voice softened. I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. We'll do everything we can. Ethan closed his eyes, his throat tightening. His empire couldn't save him. His money couldn't speed the waiting list. His fame couldn't protect him from a body failing too soon. And he had never felt more alone. He turned his head toward the window. The sky outside was a cold California blue, beautiful, unfeeling. Ordinary people walked down the street without looking up. Cars moved smoothly in the lanes below. Life continued without hesitation, exactly as it had for Maya in Detroit. Two strangers, two worlds, both breaking at the same time without knowing the other even existed. He pressed a weak hand to his chest, feeling the faint throb of a failing organ. Please, he whispered into the quiet room. Please let something come through. He didn't know who he was praying to. He only knew he was running out of time. And far away, in a hospital storage room labeled Donor Registry Processing, a cooler containing a healthy kidney from a woman named Ruth Brown sat waiting to be transported. Ethan didn't know her name. He didn't know the price her daughter had already paid. He didn't know the gift was already on its way to him. Not yet. 3 months passed like a long blur. Winter in Detroit softened into a chilly spring, the kind where the air still bit at your fingertips, but the sun tried its best to feel warm. Maya worked every day, selling oranges, helping at the soup kitchen, sweeping the sidewalks outside the church. She kept busy because stopping meant thinking, and thinking brought the ache rushing back, the kind that sat deep in her chest, where no amount of breathing could ease it. Still, she tried, for Mama Ruth. Meanwhile, across the country, San Francisco felt like a different universe entirely. Tech startups bloomed on every corner. Electric cars hummed through the streets, and in a hillside hospital overlooking the bay, Ethan Cole lay in a private suite the size of some people's entire apartments. Yet he felt trapped in a cage, shrinking a little more each day. Dialysis drained him. Meetings were canceled. His board grew nervous. His body felt heavier, slower, and quieter, as though parts of him were already pulling away from living. Every time he checked the wait list, the numbers barely moved. His doctors visited often with updates that offered statistics, but no hope. Finding a match is difficult, they said. We're monitoring you closely, they said. Try to stay positive, they said. He'd nod politely, but inside something hollowed out a little more. Until the morning, everything changed. It started with a faint knock at his hospital door. Ethan opened his eyes to see Dr. Amir standing there, the one physician who never sugarcoated anything but always spoke with a steady, reassuring tone. Today, though, the doctor's face held something different, a quiet urgency, and beneath that, hope. Mr. Cole, he said, we just received notice from the National Donor Registry. Ethan pushed himself up in bed, breath catching. Did I move up the list? No, the doctor said softly. Something far better. He stepped closer. A perfect match became available this morning. Blood type, tissue compatibility, everything aligns. It's extremely rare. Almost miraculous. Ethan stared at him, stunned. A match? You're sure? Yes, Dr. Amir said. 100%. The donor is a woman named Ruth Brown. Something in him tightened. A simple, ordinary name. Yet it echoed in his mind as if wrapped in meaning he couldn't understand. Who is she? Ethan whispered. The doctor's expression softened. She passed away a few months ago. A car accident. Her daughter gave permission to donate her organs, and her kidney is in excellent condition. If you agree, we can proceed immediately. Ethan swallowed hard, emotion burning behind his eyes. After months of watching time slip through his fingers, now this. A stranger stepping into his story in the most selfless way imaginable. I want to meet her family, he said instinctively, to thank them. The doctor shook his head gently. I'm afraid that won't be possible. She's already gone. A pause. But you can honor her by living. Honor her. Live. Two things he suddenly wanted more than anything. I'll do it, he whispered. Schedule the surgery. Dr. Amir nodded and stepped out to alert the surgical team. Within minutes, the suite buzzed with preparation. Nurses checked his vitals, prepped IV lines, rolled equipment carts beside the bed. Outside the window, the fog lifted from the bay, revealing glimmers of early sunlight dancing on the water. Ethan exhaled, shaky but grateful. Ruth Brown, he murmured to himself. Thank you. Whoever you were, thank you. The surgical team wheeled him down gleaming hallways toward the operating room. Everything smelled of antiseptic and cold metal. Lights flashed overhead in long, rhythmic lines. Nurses offered calm smiles. Someone adjusted his oxygen mask. A soft voice asked him to count backwards from 10. But before the world blurred into anesthesia, he whispered one last thing. Please, let this work. And then darkness. Hours later, he awoke in a recovery room filled with soft beeps and white sheets. His vision came into focus slowly, like fog lifting over the bay again. The pain was there, yes, but distant, blurred behind medication. More important was something new, a sense of warmth deep in his side, a pulse, not his own, a gift beating steadily inside him, the gift of a woman he would never meet. Days passed in quiet recovery. Every morning, Ethan placed his hand over his abdomen, feeling the subtle flutter of life her kidney brought him. It was as if someone, whispered from inside. He found himself whispering back. On the fourth day, when he finally stepped outside for some fresh air, he looked over the city, its glass towers, its rolling fog, its shimmering blue bay, and felt something shift inside him. He felt grateful in a way that humbled him, and at the same time, deeply unworthy. A stranger had given him years he didn't deserve. Who was she? Where had she lived? Did she have a family? What kind of woman chose generosity in her final breath? Questions swirled with no answers. Until one afternoon, while waiting for discharge papers, Ethan wandered down to the chapel inside the hospital. People passed by quietly, lighting candles or sitting in pews. He stood near the back, staring at the stained glass window where sunbeams painted the floor in red and gold. His hand rested over the new pulse within him. Ruth, he whispered, I don't know who you were, but I promise I'll live in a way that honors your kindness. Outside the chapel, a nurse called his name. Mr. Cole, you're free to go home. Home. But he didn't feel the same. He'd gone into surgery a man terrified of dying. He walked out a man who owed his life to a stranger. He left the hospital with a cane, some medications, and the quiet beating of someone else's gift guiding him. He didn't know where life would lead him next. He didn't know that the road ahead would bend sharply toward a Detroit market corner, where a young woman with tired eyes and a crate of oranges was trying to rebuild a life shattered by the same tragedy that saved his. He didn't know. Not yet. But life had a quiet way of nudging people toward the truth, even when they weren't ready to see it. Ethan returned to his penthouse overlooking the bay with a new fragility he wasn't used to. The skyline shimmered outside his windows, sleek and untouchable, but he felt separated from it, like he was walking through someone else's life. Even the polished marble floors echoed differently beneath his steps, as if the space no longer recognized him. He spent his days recovering, moving slowly from room to room, his hand instinctively settling over the place where the new kidney rested inside him. Sometimes he'd feel a strange warmth, a soft throb that wasn't his, a borrowed rhythm, a reminder that he breathed because someone else no longer could. The doctors said recovery would take weeks, but the emotional recovery, well, no one had a timeline for that. He tried returning to work. He tried sitting through meetings, reviewing proposals, answering board members' concerns. But every time a chart appeared on the screen, his mind drifted. Every time someone discussed profits, he heard his surgeon's calm voice instead. Her name was Ruth Brown. He began searching for information in any quiet moment. He scrolled through donor pages, looked up nationwide accident reports, checked hospital transfers. But privacy laws were walls he couldn't climb. All he found was a name and a debt he couldn't repay. One afternoon, while standing at his window, watching seagulls glide low over the water, he felt that familiar tug beneath his ribs again, like a heartbeat trying to get his attention. Stronger this time, insistent. He closed his eyes. "Where do you want me to go?" he whispered. He didn't know if he was talking to the kidney, the universe, or the memory of a woman he'd never met. But the next morning, he made a decision. He packed a small overnight bag, called his driver, and asked for a flight to Detroit. Detroit. He had never been there. Never had a reason to go, but something pulled him east. When the plane touched down, the sharp Michigan air hit him the moment he stepped outside the terminal. It carried a faint smell of steel, rain, and bus exhaust. The sky hung low, gray but alive, different from California's polished blue, more honest somehow. He rented a car and drove with no clear destination. Neighborhoods rolled by, brick houses with peeling paint, corner stores with neon signs buzzing in daylight, kids on bikes weaving through traffic. He passed a church with a cracked bell tower, a schoolyard with rusty swings, a mural of smiling black families painted across an old laundromat. He didn't know what he was looking for, until he saw it. Near a bus stop on Gratiot Avenue, a small cluster of vendors had set up tents and crates. People milled around, buying fruit, hot dogs, bracelets, anything to get them through the week. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt alive. And then, at the far corner, just beyond a flickering ATM Inside sign, he saw a figure, a woman. Sitting beneath an old umbrella, a crate of oranges at her feet. Her posture was tired, but her face, even from a distance, held a quiet resilience that stirred something deep inside him. She lifted an orange, wiping it with a cloth before placing it atop the others. Her movements were gentle, careful, loving, the way someone would handle something precious. Ethan felt a jolt in his chest. Not pain, not fear. Something familiar. He parked on instinct, hands shaking slightly as he stepped out of the car. The sidewalk felt uneven beneath his shoes. Cars honked. A bus hissed as it pulled away from the curb. but none of it reached him clearly. Everything narrowed to her. Maya. She didn't see him yet. She was too focused on arranging her oranges, humming softly under her breath. Something gospel-like, something old, something comforting. His breath hitched. His hand pressed itself against his abdomen, right where the new heartbeat lived. That same warmth pulsed again, stronger this time, almost like recognition. He took a slow step toward her, his heart pounding out of rhythm with the new one that steadied him. But just as he walked closer, a harsh voice broke the quiet rhythm of the market. "You can't sit here all day," the security guard barked. "I told you yesterday. Move along." Ethan froze. Maya looked up, startled, hands tightening around her crate. Her face held no anger, only resignation. Like she was used to this. Like she'd been hearing the same command her entire life. "I'm not blocking anything," Maya said softly. "I'm just selling fruit." "Find another spot," the guard snapped, "or I'll call someone to escort you." The oranges in her crate trembled under her shaking fingers. A few rolled off, scattering across the pavement. The guard didn't bend to help. No one did. People looked at her the way people look at a problem, not a person. Ethan's jaw tightened. A heat rose in him he hadn't felt in months. Anger, fierce and sudden. He stepped forward without thinking. "That's enough," he said sharply. The guard turned. "Sir, this doesn't concern you." "Yes," Ethan said, voice low and steady. "It does." The guard's expression tightened, but before he could respond, a passerby recognized Ethan, the tailored coat, the expensive shoes, the face that had appeared on magazine covers. "Is that Ethan Cole?" someone whispered. The guard blinked, thrown off. "Sir, I said that's enough," Ethan repeated. Maya stared at him, eyes wide, confused. Her hands hovered uncertainly over the oranges scattered at her feet. For a moment, the world stilled. Cars quieted. Conversations faded. Ethan looked at her directly, feeling something in his chest tug again. The heartbeat. The warm pulse. The pull. He didn't understand it yet, but he knew, absolutely knew, that he wasn't leaving Detroit until he found out why. Not yet understanding that he was standing inches away from the one person whose life had already intertwined with his more deeply than either of them could imagine. The market seemed to freeze around them. The smell of fried dough drifted from a nearby food truck. A bus rumbled past, kicking up dust, and the late afternoon sun cast long shadows between the vendor stalls. But none of it touched Maya. She stood stiff, her hands hovering over the oranges that had rolled away, her eyes darting between Ethan and the guard like she was bracing for another blow. Ethan stepped closer, the anger still simmering under his calm voice. "Is there a reason you're talking to her like that?" The guard squared his shoulders, doing his best to look authoritative in a faded yellow vest. "She doesn't have permission to sell here. We've told her before." "I'm not hurting anyone," Maya said quietly, hugging the crate closer to her chest. "Just trying to make a little money." "That's not the point," the guard snapped. But the point, Ethan thought as he watched Maya carefully, was painfully clear. People saw her as a nuisance before they ever saw her as a person. He recognized the feeling, not from experience but from observation. The world had always opened doors for him. But he wasn't blind to how it slammed them in others' faces, and watching it happen in front of him now stirred something sharp inside him. "I'd like to buy some oranges," Ethan said firmly. Maya blinked, startled. "What?" "I said I want to buy some oranges." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "If that's all right with you." The guard frowned, suddenly unsure. The small crowd that had gathered leaned in, whispering among themselves. "That's Ethan Cole, the tech guy. What's he doing here? Is he talking to her?" Before the guard could protest, Ethan bent down and gently picked up 2 oranges, dusting them off. He handed them to Maya with a soft but steady smile. "How much?" he asked. Maya hesitated, confusion flooding her face. It had been a long time since someone looked at her with simple kindness instead of suspicion. They're $1 each." He nodded and reached into his coat pocket. The guard seemed ready to intervene again, until Ethan pulled out a $100 bill. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Maya's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't take that. It's too much." "It's exactly what I want to pay," Ethan said gently. "Please." Her hands shook as she accepted the bill. The guard stiffened, suddenly uncomfortable. "Sir, I didn't know." Ethan turned, voice icy. "Didn't know what? That she's human? That she deserves respect?" His words carried enough weight that the guard's mouth snapped shut. Maya lowered her gaze, her breath trembling. She didn't want trouble. She never wanted trouble. But people like the guard always assumed trouble followed her. Quietly, she whispered, "I'm sorry." "For what?" Ethan asked, looking genuinely confused. "For causing all of this." "You didn't cause anything," Ethan said softly. "You're just trying to make a living." For a moment, Maya didn't know how to respond. She wasn't used to someone stepping in for her, especially not someone who clearly came from a world where everything was polished and quiet and safe, far from corners where people counted change and hoped it stretched far enough. The guard muttered something under his breath and walked away, trying to salvage his dignity. The small crowd, realizing there would be no fight to gossip about, slowly dispersed, but Ethan stayed. "Do you have somewhere else to set up?" he asked her. Maya shook her head. "This is where most people walk by. If I move too far from the entrance, no one buys anything." He nodded thoughtfully. "Then you stay here." She looked up at him, brows knitting with confusion. "I don't understand. Why are you being so kind to me?" He hesitated, the truth resting heavy in his chest, because something inside him, the borrowed heartbeat, the warmth he couldn't explain, drew him to her like a compass aligning with true north. He didn't tell her that. Not yet. "Because you deserve kindness," he said simply. "That's reason enough." Maya's throat tightened. For a moment, the noise of the market faded. The crowd, the honking cars, the flickering street lamps, all of it softened under the weight of a moment too delicate to disturb. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and mustered a small smile. "Thank you. People don't usually stand up for me." "They should," he replied. But before she could say more, a woman in a bright jacket and oversized sunglasses hurried over, breathless. "Mr. Cole! Oh my gosh, it really is you!" She grinned wide, ignoring Maya entirely. "Can I get a picture? I'm such a fan." The sudden attention made Ethan tense. He wasn't trying to turn this into a spectacle, but the woman was persistent, already pulling out her phone. "Maya," he said softly, "I'll be right back." He stepped aside to take the picture, offering a polite smile. More people noticed him now, whispering, snapping photos from a distance. Maya watched the growing commotion with unease, clutching her crate closer. She felt the familiar sting again, the knowledge that she didn't belong in scenes like this, that people who lived in glossy magazine pages rarely spared a second glance at someone like her. But Ethan did. When he returned, he saw the doubt in her eyes, the way she pulled back, shrinking into herself like she was bracing for him to leave without a word. He didn't leave. "Would it be all right," he asked gently, "if I stayed and talked for a bit?" She blinked in surprise. "With me?" "Yes," he said, With you. Her fingers curled around the edge of her crate. Sure, I guess. They stood together beneath the faded umbrella, surrounded by crates of oranges glowing like small suns in the late afternoon light. Ethan didn't know her story yet. Maya didn't know his. But something in the quiet space between them said they were supposed to find each other. He just didn't know how deeply their lives were already entwined. Not yet. And as the sun dipped lower over Detroit, the heartbeat inside Ethan pulsed again. Steady, familiar, echoing the warmth of a woman he had not yet learned to miss. The market lights flickered on one by one, humming gently above the vendor stalls. Evening crept in with its cool breeze, carrying the smell of roasted peanuts, exhaust fumes, and damp asphalt. The sky was painted in streaks of orange and fading blue. People trickled out of the market, their bags rustling as they headed for the bus stop or their cars. But Ethan stayed. And Maya, though unsure why, didn't ask him to leave. A kind of quiet settled between them, not uncomfortable but fragile, like a glass jar holding something both of them were afraid to touch. Long day? Ethan asked softly, as Maya began folding the old umbrella above her crate. She gave a small laugh, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. Long week, long year. Might as well say long life. Ethan didn't smile. He heard something heavy in her tone, something earned. He had lived through months of fear, but she had lived through something else entirely, something older, deeper, stitched into the fabric of her every day. Do you walk home from here? He asked. Yeah, Maya said, stacking her oranges more neatly than necessary. Just a few blocks, nothing fancy. Do you want a ride? She stopped, looked at him, really looked, and she shook her head. Thank you, she said, but I'm okay walking. I like passing the church. Makes me feel like Mama's nearby. The way she said it, Mama, felt like a small bruise blooming in the air. Ethan felt it land in his chest. He didn't push. Then can I walk with you? Just to talk? I won't get in your way. Maya studied him, the lingering distrust of someone who'd been let down too many times. But something about him, maybe the softness in his eyes, maybe the unpolished sincerity, felt safe. So she nodded. They walked through the neighborhood as streetlights buzzed awake, casting warm halos onto cracked sidewalks. Kids rode their bikes home. A woman in a purple coat carried grocery bags into an apartment complex. A preacher's voice echoed faintly from a storefront church, singing an old hymn that floated into the night. Maya held her crate close as she walked. Ethan kept a polite distance, his breath visible in the cooling air. You sell oranges every day? He asked. It's what I can afford to wholesale, she said. People like oranges. They're bright, easy to carry. And Mama, she always said they tasted like hope. Ethan felt that tug again, inside, beneath his ribs. Your mother sounds like she was a special woman. Maya's steps slowed. The street noise softened around her. She pressed the crate against her body like a shield. Yeah, she whispered. She was. For a long moment, the only sound was their footsteps crunching over a patch of old broken glass. You don't have to tell me anything, Ethan said gently. But if you want to, I'm here. Maya drew in a shaky breath, and then the story began to spill. She died almost 3 months ago, Maya said, her voice edged with a pain she was trying to hold back. A car hit her, right in front of me. 1 second she was holding my hand, and the next, her voice cracked. Ethan's heart twisted. I thought she'd say something before they put her in the ambulance, Maya continued. I thought she'd tell me she'd be okay. Her eyes glistened with memories too sharp to hold. But all she said was that if she didn't make it, She wanted them to save someone with whatever they could take. Ethan stopped walking. Completely. The world blurred at the edges, sounds stretching thin. His chest tightened, not with fear, not with pain, but with something far deeper. He swallowed hard. She wanted to be a donor? Yes, Maya whispered. That was her last wish. A cold wind swept down the block, cutting through Ethan's coat. But inside him, a warmth surged, fierce and overwhelming. Mama Ruth, Detroit, a donor, a kidney. His breath hitched. What? What was her name? He asked, though he already knew. His voice trembled anyway. Maya hugged the crate tighter. Ruth. Ruth Brown. Ethan's legs nearly gave out. A distant siren wailed. A bus roared past. The preacher's hymn from the storefront church swelled into the night, but none of it reached him clearly. All he felt was the pounding, his heartbeat and the borrowed one, fusing into a single, thunderous truth. Her mother, the woman whose organ now kept him alive, the gift he whispered to in the quiet hours, the warmth he felt inside him. Maya walked a few steps ahead before realizing he'd stopped. She turned back. Are you okay? Did I say something wrong? Ethan forced himself to breathe through the storm raging inside him. He couldn't speak, not yet. The truth was too enormous to drop into her hands like another weight she didn't deserve. He managed a small nod. I'm just sorry, he whispered, for everything you've been through. She gave a tired, grateful smile. Life doesn't give you a choice sometimes. He followed her again, though his steps felt unsteady. Every inch of him ached with the truth he could not yet say. When they reached the steps of a small brick building, the apartment she lived above, Maya turned to him. Thank you, she said softly, for walking with me, for earlier. People don't usually look out for me. Ethan swallowed, the words catching in his throat. I'm glad I did. Maya shifted her crate, ready to climb the steps. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Maya. She turned away. He stood frozen, one hand pressed over the heartbeat inside him, the heartbeat of her mother, the heartbeat she didn't know he carried. Not yet. Detroit had gone quiet by the time Ethan reached his hotel, the kind of quiet that feels too heavy, like the sky itself is holding its breath. Streetlights flickered outside the window, casting long yellow shadows across the floor as he paced back and forth, one hand pressed against his ribs, right where the new kidney rested. Her mother, Ruth Brown. Mama Ruth. His breath quivered each time the truth circled back, landing harder, deeper, sharper than before. He leaned his forehead against the cool glass and whispered, I talked to her daughter. I walked with her. The realization struck again like a sudden chill. He had spent the entire evening beside the woman whose mother lived inside him now, landscapes of the night blurred behind the glass. For a moment, Ethan felt like a man split clean in two, one half full of gratitude he could never repay, the other weighed down by guilt he didn't know how to carry. He dropped into the chair, breath uneven. Why didn't the hospital tell me? Why didn't I look harder? A memory flashed. The first time he woke after surgery, blurry-eyed and terrified, gripping the nurse's hand. Her name was Ruth, the doctor had said, a donor whose family couldn't be notified. He hadn't questioned it then. He was too stunned to be alive. But now he knew exactly what that meant. Maya wasn't just a girl with a crate of oranges and an old umbrella. She was the daughter of the woman who saved him, and she had no idea. He pulled the transplant file from his bag, worn edges, creased corners. He had carried it everywhere since the surgery, flipping it open whenever fear tried to take him. Tonight, his fingers trembled as he opened it. Donor, Ruth Brown, 52, Detroit, Michigan. Accident trauma. Next of kin. Unreachable. Ethan stared at the words until his vision blurred. She wasn't unreachable, he whispered. She was standing right in front of me. A knock broke the silence. He froze. Another knock, firmer, impatient. Ethan wiped his face quickly and opened the door. Vanessa. Her silhouette filled the doorway. Sharp heels, sharper expression, perfume thick enough to overpower the room. She stepped inside without asking, letting her purse drop onto the table like she owned the place. I had a feeling you were here, she said, her tone cutting. You didn't respond to my texts. I've been busy, Ethan replied quietly, trying to gather himself. Busy in Detroit? Vanessa scoffed. Since when do you ever come to Detroit? He didn't answer. He didn't owe her anything anymore. She spotted the open file on the table. Is that your medical stuff again? Vanessa. But she had already crossed the room, picking up the folder before he could stop her. Her eyes skated over the words. Donor, Ruth Brown. She looked up. And why is this important now? Ethan took the file back gently. Because I met her daughter today. Vanessa blinked, stunned for a moment, and then her lips curled in something close to disbelief. You're kidding. He shook his head. You're actually telling me, she said, lowering her voice like she was the only sane person in the room. That fate just magically put her in front of you. It wasn't fate, Ethan whispered. It was her mother. Something drew me to her. Vanessa stared at him, eyes narrowing. This is insane. Completely insane. Ethan started to walk away, but her voice followed him, sharp, slicing the room in half. This is about that girl, isn't it? The one selling oranges like some charity case? Vanessa's laugh was bitter. You barely talked to me for weeks and suddenly you're running around Detroit with a street vendor? Stop, Ethan said, turning with a coldness she'd never seen in him before. Don't talk about her like that. His voice wasn't loud, but it was final. Vanessa's eyes widened. She stepped back as if slapped. So it is about her. He exhaled shakily. I owe her more than you could possibly understand. Why? Vanessa challenged. Who is she to you? The truth rose up in him like a tide, heavy, unstoppable. She's the daughter of the woman who saved my life. The room stilled. Vanessa froze mid-breath, staring at him. And then she scoffed again, refusing to accept a reality she couldn't control. This is ridiculous. You're making emotional decisions based on what? A coincidence. It wasn't a coincidence, Ethan said softly, the weight of the truth anchoring him. Her mother saved me. Now I need to make sure her daughter doesn't spend her life alone, struggling the way they did. Vanessa folded her arms. So you're going to what? Take care of her now? Because of a kidney? No, he said. Because of a promise I didn't even know I'd made. Vanessa stepped closer, voice simmering with jealousy. And what about us? There is no us, Ethan replied gently but firmly. Not anymore. Vanessa's face hardened. He watched as something dark settled into her expression, a mixture of humiliation and something more dangerous. You're making a mistake, she hissed. A big one. She snatched her purse and stormed toward the door, but before she exited, she turned back. You think she's innocent? You think she wants nothing from you? Vanessa's eyes narrowed like a blade. Detroit girls know how to play the game. Don't be shocked when she takes advantage of you. Ethan stepped forward, anger flickering for the first time. If you ever speak about her that way again, we're done permanently. We're already done, she snapped. You just don't know it yet. The door slammed. Silence. Ethan pressed both palms to his face, breathing deeply, trying to steady the storm inside him. He wasn't worried about Vanessa's anger. He was worried about the truth and how it would break Maya if it wasn't handled gently, respectfully, carefully. He stood at the window again, Detroit lights blurring beneath him. Maya, he whispered to the night, the name trembling out of him with something that felt dangerously close to love. How do I tell you, without shattering you all over again? The borrowed heartbeat thudded gently inside him. Mama Ruth's heartbeat. A gift Maya never knew she had given. Not yet. But soon. Detroit's evening came down in a soft, gray hush, the kind of chill that clings to old brick walls and narrow alleys. Maya had just finished folding up her small crate, tucking the last 2 oranges into a worn canvas bag, when a sudden gust of wind brushed past her, lifting loose curls around her face. She didn't know her life was about to tilt again. This time not from tragedy, not from fate, but from someone who couldn't stand the light she carried. Miles away, in a sleek Chicago hotel room filled with designer luggage, Vanessa stood with her phone pressed to her ear, pacing in sharp, irritated steps. Her lipstick was flawless, but her voice trembled with something twisted between anger and humiliation. Yes, I want it everywhere, she snapped. Reddit, Twitter, all of it. I don't care how you phrase it, just make her look like she's using him. A pause. No, I don't know her name, Vanessa hissed. She sells oranges in Detroit. That's all you need. She ended the call and threw her phone onto the bed. For a long moment she stood still, breathing hard, hands shaking. Ethan had chosen that girl, a girl with dirt under her nails and no last name anyone recognized. Vanessa's pride burned hotter than jealousy. If he wants to see her, she whispered to herself, let him see who she really is. Meanwhile, Maya walked home through the narrow pathway that cut behind the community church, the sky growing darker by the minute. Her footsteps echoed softly on the cracked pavement. She hugged her bag close, whispering a quiet prayer under her breath, the same one Mama Ruth used to say. Her mother always said kindness traveled far. Maya just didn't know it could also make her a target. When she reached her building, a weathered structure with peeling paint and flickering hallway lights, she found her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, standing by the steps with her phone in hand. Maya, the older woman called gently. Sweetheart, have you been online today? Maya frowned. No, ma'am. Why? Mrs. Henderson's eyes softened with worry. There's something going around. Folks are saying you're taking advantage of some rich man. Maya blinked, stunned. What? What rich man? People are saying all sorts of ugly things, Mrs. Henderson continued, patting Maya's arm. That you tricked him, that you're after his money. Maya felt her stomach twist. I don't even know any rich man. Well, apparently the internet thinks you do. Mrs. Henderson sighed. Don't mind them, baby. People talk. You just keep your head high. But when Maya went inside her apartment and opened her old phone, the screen buzzed with notifications she didn't understand. Messages from strangers. Comments under a picture someone had taken of her selling oranges. Gold digger. Street girl chasing a billionaire. She knows what she's doing. Stay away from him. Maya stared at the screen as if it were a foreign language. Her throat tightened. She dropped the phone onto her bed and covered her face with both hands. Why are they saying this? She whispered. There was a knock at her door. Maya? It was her friend, Carla, her voice anxious. You okay? Maya opened the door slowly. Carla stepped in, holding a grocery bag. Girl, the whole neighborhood's talking. Folks from the market are asking questions. Maya shook her head over and over. I don't know any billionaire. I don't know who they're talking about. Why would someone do this? Carla put the groceries down and held her shoulders gently. People online don't care about truth. They just want a story. Maya pressed her palms to her face again, feeling heat behind her eyes. She'd lost her mother, her savings, and now strangers were stripping away her dignity, with nothing but rumors. But the worst moment was still ahead. Later that night, long after the streetlights buzzed on, Maya left her apartment to clear her mind. The air was cool, the alleyway quiet. She wrapped her sweater tighter and walked slowly toward the small corner store. That's when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. A woman stood in the shadow of a street lamp, tall, immaculate, wrapped in an expensive coat that did not belong in Maya's neighborhood. When she stepped forward, her heels clicked sharply. Vanessa. Maya stiffened. She'd never seen this woman before, but something about her presence sent a wave of cold fear through her. "You're Maya, right?" Vanessa's voice was low, mocking. "The little fruit seller?" Maya swallowed. "Yes. Can I help you?" "Help me?" Vanessa let out a cruel laugh. "You've already helped yourself. To my boyfriend." Maya blinked. "You're... what?" "Ethan," Vanessa said sharply. "Ring a bell?" Maya shook her head. "I don't know anyone named Ethan. I only met..." "Don't lie to me." Vanessa stepped closer. "I saw him looking at you, following you, talking to you, and now the whole internet is making a fool of me because of you." Maya backed up a step, heart pounding. "Ma'am, whatever you think happened, it didn't. I don't know him. I didn't ask for anything." "Oh, I know you didn't ask," Vanessa sneered. "Girls like you never ask. You just smile and wait for someone rich to feel sorry for you." Maya flinched as if struck. "Please," she whispered. "I haven't done anything." Vanessa stepped even closer, her eyes sharp and merciless. "Stay away from him. Don't speak to him. Don't let him see you again, or I'll make sure your life becomes harder than you can imagine." Tears welled in Maya's eyes, but she forced her voice steady. "I don't want anything from him. Nothing." "Good," Vanessa said coldly. "Then disappear, and do it fast." She turned and walked away, her coat sweeping behind her like a dark wave, leaving Maya standing alone in the quiet streetlight glow. Maya's hands shook as she wrapped her arms around herself. Her breath hitched, coming out in small, broken gasps. She leaned against the brick wall and shut her eyes tight. She didn't know why the world kept pushing her down. She didn't know why kindness made her a target. She didn't know how many more hits her heart could take. But she did know one thing. She was tired. So tired. Across the city, in a dimly lit hotel room, Ethan felt the unease again. The same sharp pull in his chest, the same instinct telling him something was wrong. He didn't know Vanessa had already begun her sabotage. He didn't know Maya was being cornered by cruelty meant for him. He just knew he couldn't stay away from her any longer. Not now. Not when her mother's heartbeat lived inside him. Not when fate kept guiding him back to the same place, the same girl, the same quiet strength. He grabbed his coat and headed for the door. Tonight, something was shattering, and he needed to know what it was before it was too late. Ethan drove through Detroit as if the night itself were urging him forward. The streets glistened from a light drizzle, and every red light felt like a hand pressed against his chest, trying to slow him. He tapped his fingers against the steering wheel, jaw locked, breath uneven. Something in him, something deeper than reason, whispered that Maya needed him. He didn't know why that feeling was so strong. He only knew he had to follow it. When he reached the neighborhood where he'd first seen her selling oranges, the area felt heavier than usual, as if the air itself carried the weight of something that had just broken. Street lamps buzzed faintly. Windows glowed with muted yellow light. Somewhere a dog barked in the distance. Ethan stepped out of the car and scanned the street, looking for the soft shape of Maya's silhouette. Instead, he saw a neighbor, an older man sweeping his porch with slow, careful strokes. "Excuse me," Ethan called gently. "Sir, have you seen Maya Brown?" The man looked up, pausing mid-sweep. His gaze narrowed, distrust flickering across his face the way it often did when strangers in expensive coats showed up in places like this. "Who are you?" he asked. "A friend," Ethan said. "I just need to check on her." The man grunted. "She ain't do nothing wrong, you know." Ethan blinked. "Sir?" "She ain't the kind to chase after folks for money," the man said quietly. "All these lies folks are postin'. She don't deserve any of it." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What lies?" The man studied him for a long beat. Then, with a sigh heavy enough to bow his shoulders, he jerked his chin toward the next street. "Try the alley behind the corner store." Ethan thanked him and hurried off. The closer he got, the darker the street seemed to grow. A flickering lamp cast long shadows across the pavement. And then he saw her, Maya, leaning against a brick wall, arms wrapped around herself, breath shuddering in short, uneven bursts. "Maya?" he whispered. She startled, lifting her head. Her eyes were red, swollen, shining with hurt she'd tried, and failed, to swallow. When she saw it was him, her whole body tensed, as if bracing for another blow. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice barely audible. Ethan stepped closer, slow, careful, as if approaching a wounded bird. "I came to check on you. Something felt wrong." She laughed softly, broken, tired. "Everything's wrong." He waited. Maya hugged herself tighter. "People online. They're saying horrible things, that I'm using some rich man, that I'm tricking him." She shook her head. "But I don't even know any rich man." Ethan's breath caught. "Maya," he said gently, "they're talking about me." Her lips parted, confusion flashing across her face. "You?" "Yes." He swallowed hard. "But I didn't know about any of this. I never meant to bring trouble to your life." Maya stared at him, as if trying to understand how two worlds so different had collided so violently. "Why would they say I'm after you?" she whispered. "I don't even know who you are." And there it was. The truth he'd been trying to hold back. The truth that tied their lives together in ways she could not yet imagine. Ethan exhaled slowly, steadying himself. "My name is Ethan Wells." She blinked. "Okay? And I'm the CEO of Wells Tech." Silence. A long, heavy silence. Maya stared at him as though he'd said he lived on the moon. Wells Tech was on every billboard, every commercial, every news segment about tech innovation. It wasn't a name people in her world spoke casually. "That's you," she breathed. "Yes," he said. "But I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to look at me differently. I didn't want a title to change the way you talked to me, or the way you smiled when you handed me an orange." His voice softened. "You were the first person in a long time who saw me as a human being, not a company." Maya's breath trembled. "But I didn't ask for anything. I never wanted—" "I know," Ethan said, stepping closer. "That's why I came. I know you're nothing like what they're saying." Maya's eyes filled again. "Then why did that woman come here? Why did she say those things?" Ethan stiffened. "What woman?" She hesitated, but then her voice cracked with exhaustion. "Vanessa." Ethan closed his eyes for a brief, burning second. Vanessa. He hadn't been officially dating her, not really, but he knew why she thought she had a claim on him, why she felt threatened, why she lashed out, and why she had chosen Maya as her target. Ethan opened his eyes, and the look in them wasn't the polished calm of a CEO. It was something fierce and human. "What did she say to you?" he asked. Maya shrugged, but her voice betrayed her. "That girls like me just wait for someone rich to feel sorry for them. That I should disappear." Ethan's jaw tensed until a muscle twitched along the side. She had no right. None. Maya looked down, tears dropping onto her sweater sleeve. "I just want to live my life. I just want to sell my fruit and go home and sleep without people thinking I'm trying to trick someone." Ethan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull back. She didn't. His hand rested gently on her shoulder. "Maya," he said quietly, "you didn't do anything wrong. What's happening to you? It's because of me. And I'm not going to let you face this alone." Her eyes lifted to his, searching. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much?" He didn't breathe for a long moment. Then, softly, achingly, he answered, "Because your mother saved my life." Maya froze. "What?" "She saved me," Ethan said, voice trembling. "I didn't know it was her at first, but I found out when the hospital showed me the donor records. Your mother, Mama Ruth, she gave me her heart." Maya stared at him as if the world had stopped spinning. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "My heartbeat," Ethan whispered, lifting her hand to place it gently against his chest, "is hers." Maya's eyes flooded, tears spilling silently. "And that means," Ethan continued, voice breaking, "that every beat I have left, I owe to her, and to you." She shook her head slowly, overwhelmed. "But I didn't. I never—" "You didn't need to," he said. "Your kindness, your strength, your mother's sacrifice, they pulled me toward you before I even understood why. I'm here because I belong here." Maya's tears slipped down her cheeks, but her breathing steadied, slowly, painfully, like a heart learning to trust again. "Ethan," she whispered. He squeezed her hand gently. "I'll fix this. All of it. Vanessa, the rumors, the lies, everything. You won't face it alone." A quiet moment wrapped around them, fragile, trembling, but warm. Then a soft buzz broke the silence. Ethan's phone. He glanced down. An email. From his legal team. Subject line, "Urgent. Leak traced." Sender, Vanessa M. Ward. His blood ran cold. "Maya," he said softly, lifting his eyes to hers. "There's something else." "What?" she whispered. He exhaled, steadying himself. "We're not done with her yet." The night around them tightened, and the final storm began to gather. For a long moment, Ethan and Maya stood in that dim alley, the weight of truth settling between them like falling dust. Quiet, delicate, irreversible. Maya's hand rested lightly against Ethan's chest, feeling the heartbeat that once belonged to her mother. It pulsed steady and warm beneath her fingertips, grounding her in a world that suddenly felt too fast, too bright, too overwhelming. But the storm did not wait. Another notification lit up Ethan's phone, then another and another, flashes of cold blue across the darkness. Maya stepped back, her breath unsteady. "Is that about me?" she whispered. Ethan shook his head. "It's about us, about who's behind everything." The screen glowed with a final line. Leak confirmed. Coordinated smear. Vanessa responsible. Proceeding with legal action? Ethan closed his eyes. It wasn't anger that moved through him now, it was clarity. Cold, clean, absolute. "Maya," he said gently, "we have to fix this tonight." Her brows pinched in confusion. "How?" By going to the place she thinks we'd never dare show up, Ethan said. Where she can't lie, yell, or threaten. He met her eyes. Where her voice won't be the loudest. Maya swallowed. Where is that? Ethan slipped his phone back into his coat. Your mother's grave. Maya froze. He lowered his voice. I need to speak to her, and you deserve to hear the truth in a place where no one can twist it. The rain began again, light, misty, almost gentle, like the city itself had paused to listen. Maya nodded once. They walked together through the quiet streets, passing shuttered stores, dim porches, and narrow alleys where time moved slow. Ethan stayed close but kept a respectful distance, giving her space to breathe. When they reached the small church cemetery, the gate creaked softly as Ethan pushed it open. Rows of gravestones stretched out under the moonlight, each one carrying a name, a life, a story. Maya led the way. Mama Ruth's grave sat beneath an old maple tree, its branches swaying in the wind like a lullaby. Fresh flowers lay at the base, simple, white, placed there earlier that week. Maya knelt, fingers brushing the stone. Hi, Mama, she whispered, her voice breaking. I brought someone. Ethan stepped forward slowly, removing his hat, his breath catching as he looked at the name that had lived in his donor records for months. Ruth Brown, beloved mother, kindness in every breath. He dropped to one knee, unable to stand beneath the weight of the moment. Mrs. Brown, he said softly, I don't know if I deserve to speak to you, but I need to, because you saved me when you didn't have to. You saved me before you ever knew who I was. His hand trembled as he placed it gently against the stone. You gave me your heart, he whispered, and because of that, I've lived long enough to meet your daughter, who carries your kindness in everything she does. A tear slipped down his cheek. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what you gave me. I'm sorry your daughter suffered because of what others did in my name. But I promise you, his voice cracked, no one will ever hurt her again. Maya covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. Ethan looked at her, then back at the stone. Mrs. Brown, I want to keep your daughter safe. I want to support her, lift her up, help her finish the dreams you never got to complete. And if she'll let me, his breath shook, I want to be in her life, not out of guilt, but because she is someone I would have chosen even if you hadn't saved me. Silence settled over the cemetery, deep, sacred, warm. Then, from the shadows near the gate, footsteps echoed. Maya turned sharply. A woman in a designer coat stepped into the moonlight. Vanessa. Her lips pressed in a thin, furious line. Her eyes flashed. So this is where you both ran off to, she scoffed. How poetic. Ethan rose slowly, body instinctively shifting in front of Maya. Vanessa, he said quietly, this isn't the time. Oh, it's exactly the time, she hissed, stepping closer. You're standing here with some girl from the street, throwing away everything we built. We didn't build anything, Ethan cut in, voice firm. Vanessa flinched as though slapped. You leaked private medical records, he said. You harassed an innocent woman. You slandered her online. And you came into her neighborhood to threaten her. Vanessa's jaw tightened. She's using you. She didn't even know who I was, Ethan said. She never asked for a thing. You did. Vanessa's nostrils flared. You're choosing her over me? Over us? There is no us, he said gently. Then his tone turned stronger. And what you've done is criminal. Vanessa's eyes darted between him and Maya, as though searching desperately for one last foothold. But it was gone. The storm inside her stuttered, then cracked. You'll regret this, she spat. Both of you. Ethan shook his head. No, because tonight, everything changed. He took Maya's hand. Vanessa stared at their joined hands, her anger collapsing into a hollow, trembling silence. Then she turned sharply, heels clicking as she stormed out of the cemetery. When she was gone, the night opened again, softer, calmer, the storm easing. Maya exhaled shakily. Why did you say all that? Ethan turned to her, eyes warm but steady. Because it's true. But you barely know me, she whispered. Ethan smiled softly. I know enough. I know you take care of people who can't repay you. I know you work hard without asking for recognition. I know you've suffered more silently than most people ever will, and you still get up every morning to give something good to the world. He lifted her hand, gently, reverently, and placed it over his heart. And I know that your mother's heartbeat brought me here for a reason. Maya gasped quietly as she felt the rhythm beneath her palm. Strong, steady, alive. Ethan's voice softened to a whisper. Whatever life I have left, I want to use it to help you live the life your mother dreamed of for you. Maya looked at him through tears, her voice barely a breath. Ethan, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything tonight, he whispered. Just let me walk with you. Let me earn your trust. Let me honor your mother. A long silence stretched between them, full, tender, and healing. Then Maya leaned forward, not into his arms, but just enough for their foreheads to meet, a gesture as old as comfort itself. Okay, she whispered. Walk with me. Ethan closed his eyes, a trembling breath escaping him. They stayed there a moment longer, before he wrapped his coat around her shoulders and led her out of the cemetery, step by step, under the soft glow of the streetlights. In the distance, dawn waited patiently, and for the first time in a long, long while, Maya felt like morning was finally coming. Kindness had found its way back home, and two lives, once broken, began quietly stitching themselves together under the watchful grace of a woman whose heart still beat on, literally and eternally. If this story touched your heart even a little, drop a simple 1 in the comments so we know you're still here with us. Sometimes just one small number says more than 1,000 words, and if you'd like to travel with us through more stories of kindness, fate, and life-changing twists, make sure you subscribe and turn on the bell. We have many more journeys waiting for you, stories that warm the soul and remind us why compassion still matters. Your comment, your presence, your support, it truly makes a difference. See you in the next story.